So we're talking about the causes of this some of these problems that affect the kidney. We said that when we pick the first problem that affect the kidney, which is pre-azotemia, which means there's a blockage before the blood gets to the kidney, and or the blood is in a way not getting to the kidney. So the question is, why is it so? Why does it happen that way? Number one, there can be a blockage in the renal artery. There can also be a hemorrhage that is preventing the blood from getting to the kidney. And if you are also dehydrated, the blood is not having a lot of water to carry or the waste to the kidney, so that one too can be a cause of it. Now then we also have the renal azotemia itself, which is, it can be a necrosis of the kidney, so it affects the kidney organ properly, and it can be a specific problem with the kidney as well. Then aside that, we also have another condition of the kidney, which is the post-renal azotemia. So after the filtration and all that, if the urine is not able to come out, there can be a blockage. That's why the urine is not able to come out. So some of the causes can be kidney stones, etc. So all that is about the urea, the blood urea and nitrogen. So if, in a nutshell, if the urea or the blood urea nitrogen is high, the BUN is high, it means that there's a problem with the kidney. The kidney is not able to get rid of the waste urea. However, if it is low, then it means that the body is able to work, or the kidney is able to work properly in getting the urea out of the body. The next thing to talk about, which is my second thing I'm talking about, is the creatinine. Now whenever we say creatinine, the first thing that comes into mind is muscles, because the more muscles you have, or the more muscular you have, the higher your creatinine. So when the muscles undergo metabolism, the end product or the byproduct that comes out of it, not the end product, the byproduct that comes out of it is the creatinine, and it is also a waste. Just as we discussed that the urea is a waste, this one too is also a waste. And when you compare the various genders, the males or men have higher of it than women, and also women also have higher than children, in that order, because men are more muscular than women. And as men, we tend to do a whole lot of exercise, a whole lot of activities, which every day now and then causes muscular metabolism and releasing a lot of creatinine in the blood. However, creatinine is a constant. It is a constant concentration. It doesn't change. It is a constant based on or proportional to the the muscle mass. So the bigger muscles you have, the higher your creatinine. The lesser muscles you have, the lesser your creatinine. It doesn't matter whatever you do, it will never change. So that is about the creatinine. And when we look at some of the effects that it has on the human body, as to if the human body is not able to get rid of creatinine, if there is a high level of it, it means that the kidney is having a problem. There's a problem with the kidney, and if the kidney is having a problem in getting the creatinine out, then it is very serious, because it is also toxic to the body. However, if the kidney functions properly or functions well, it means that it's able to get rid of the creatinine that is coming out of the metabolism of the muscles. Now we have to also know that the creatinine has a content of creatine phosphate, and that is how the muscles store energy. So energy is stored in a form such as the creatine phosphate, and if once there is metabolism of it, then it turns into creatinine, and so the body has to get rid of the creatinine because it is a waste. And the third thing I want to talk about is the uric acid. And uric acid is one of the painful ones, because when cells die and then their DNA is degraded, now the DNA molecules that comes out of it comes out in the form of purines and pyrimidines. But pyrimidines, we don't have any issue with it. It is the purines we have issues with. And when we say purine, we are referring to the guanine and adenine. So if it is guanine and adenine, it means that once they pass a certain level in the body, then the level is around approximately 6.8 milligram per deciliter. If this level is breached or surpassed, it means that now it is the environment, or the internal environment, has now become very, very acidic. And if it has become very, very acidic, it means that it is now very, very suitable for the production of uric crystals. And these uric crystals are the reason why there will be a lot of pain experienced, as I further explain. So once uric crystals are formed as a result of the purines metabolizing, or the purines will break down, and then in the acidic environment, these crystals are formed. Now when they are formed, they oftentimes form in the joints. So the person will have a lot of pains in the joint, and it is also foreign. The body is not used to it, so it's foreign. Therefore, the white blood cells are triggered to attack it, engulf it, and then destroy it. However, when they engulf it and they phagocytose it, after they do that, because it is a crystal, and crystals are very, very sharp, it is able to burst open the white blood cells and expose the lactic acid in them into the body internal environment also. Therefore, the latter stage of the body internal environment will even become more acidic because there's more acid that is being added to the initial one from the destruction of the white blood cells, which intended to phagocytose the crystals. But these crystals are very sharp. They'll cut open the white blood cells, and then you have a lot of acid joining in to the initial ones. And so the latter stage is very acidic. And as we said, the more acidic it is and purines metabolism available, there will be more creation or formation of these crystals. So the person will continue having a chain of pain, a very long chain of pain, until medical intervention is done. And this condition is what we call the gout. So when we talk about uric acid, then we have to also have in mind the gout, a painful inflammation in the joints from precipitation of the sodium urate in tissues, especially in the joint tissues. That's what we're talking about. Now, the last thing I will talk about as one of the waste products of the body is ammonia. And previously, when I began, I talked briefly about it as a gas. Now, how does this gas get into the body? From proteins, the proteins we eat, the meat we eat, and all that. Now, these proteins break down into amino acids. When amino acids break down further, they form ammonia. Now, ammonia is very dangerous. That's why the liver quickly turns the ammonia into urea to save the body. However, if there is a liver failure, it means that this ammonia gas will then migrate into the central nervous system. And if it gets into the central nervous system, there's a whole lot of syndromes that can come up in the central nervous system. There's a whole lot of problems that will affect the central nervous system, the brain, the spinal cord, etc., etc. And it can be very, very dangerous. So it has a very neurotoxic effect on the central nervous system. So that is on account of the NPN compound waste that we have in our blood, which in simple terms means the non-protein nitrogenous compound waste in the body, or in the serum, or in the plasma. So let us see. Now, I'll then talk about the test. There are several tests for creatinine and also urea or BUN. There are several tests. Even I don't want to talk about the full blood count. With the full blood count we do in the lab, it is able to record a number for the BUN. But when I'm talking about the test, what we do in the lab aside the full blood count results, when it comes to the measurement of creatinine, we have a test called the Jaffe's test or the Jaffe's method. It was introduced around the 18th century. By this same scientist called Jaffe. Now, in this test, you are going to add alkaline picric acid to your sample plasma. So you pour it into the plasma, which is in the test tube, and this plasma or this mixture, because you've now poured it into the plasma, so this mixture, if it has the creatinine, or yeah, of course it has creatinine, but if there will be a color change, and the color change will be a reddish color that will be seen. So the more intense the color, the higher the creatinine content of it. And so that's how we measure the creatinine level in the patient's blood. Then we also have another test for urea. We have another test for urea, which is also called the Berthelot method. The Berthelot method makes use of an enzyme, the urease. So you have your test tube containing your plasma. You pour the enzyme urease into it, and like we said, that in the previous, the initial stage, we said that protein to amino acid will break down into ammonia, and ammonia will now be converted into urea by the liver. This time around we are doing the opposite. So we know that there's urea in the plasma. So we have to, in order for us to measure the urea content, urea is very, very soluble in water, and we cannot really pinpoint it. We cannot really, because it's very soluble. It's soluble in water, so it's difficult to pinpoint it. It's as if you pour sugar into water, and you are asked to, after it has dissolved, you are asked to locate the sugar. It's very difficult. So in that sense, we have to rewind it, or we have to reverse the process by using the enzyme urease. Now this urease will act on the urea, which is in the plasma, turn it into ammonia again. And after it turns it into ammonia, we are able to, now the ammonia will now, ammonia forms a greenish color, or a greenish complex. We call it a greenish complex. So this greenish complex, the more deeper it is, then it means that the higher the concentration. So that's how we measure it. Actually, we measure in the case of creatinine, we don't just measure the intensity of the color, and that's it. We measure the rate at which the color is forming. So you have to measure it and see how fast it is forming, or how low. The faster it forms, the higher the creatinine. But in the case of the urea, the higher the intensity. That one we don't really look at the rates of the formation of the greenish and complex, but we are rather looking at the intensity of the greenish color. So there's a wavelength of light which is used to measure the creatinine in the Jaffe's method, and that is around 500 nanometer of wavelength. And when it comes to the urea in the Berthelot method, the wavelength is around 578 nanometer in measuring it. And all this is very, very fascinating. It's very, very fascinating, because all these things are happening in our body. It's very mind-blowing, because there's a whole lot of things happening in our body. Imagine when one of these processes go wrong, like we have already discussed, a whole lot of issues will happen to us. But we thank God that He has given us these organs that quickly intervene and help us. So on this note, I would like to conclude that the body is a real masterpiece, and it looks as if there is a way out to every the body in its own way has a way of healing itself if given the chance. So, and given the right conditions, if we give the body the right conditions, there's no sickness that can remain in our body for a long time if we give it the right conditions. And we have to make sure the organs are working properly. The liver, which is detoxifying everything in the body, the kidney, these vital organs are very, very well and functioning. My name is Ochain Richardson, and I thank you for giving me your audience. God bless. Thank you, sir.